Yes, how are you? Less than a kilometer separated my school and that of the topic of our discussion today, Elon Musk of Tesla. That's Pretoria Boys High School where he went, and that was Christian Brothers College, where I had 5 years of schooling in a Catholic school, but somehow managed to come away unimpeded with, let's just say. Yes, that little distance, that was his childhood. One he didn't really enjoy. In fact, if we have a look at Elon, he says kids aren't getting enough challenge. He had a really tough time. He was an introvert in a tough Afrikaner environment. Pretoria Boys High School had about 10 open, that's the biggest age group, the matric age group, rugby teams. We had two. I remember the 1 year we beat them, our first team against theirs. It was an exceptional outcome. That was a tough upbringing. Pretoria, physical rugby, it didn't suit Mr. Musk, and he refers to it to this day. Anyway, he has now gone on to far greater and higher things. He is the man behind Tesla. That's right. Let's get in the Tesla website. Why not? I can't say I know the breakdown with this great company in inverted commas. It is highly divisive in terms of how it has been perceived. But let's pop over and let's go to the com site and get it up for you. And I'm going to share a couple of thoughts. I am a skeptic, and I'll give you my reasons. Although, as I say, I don't feel like I know anything particularly special, but I'm going to go through the facts that I do, and I'm going to apply my particular filter that might answer some of the questions why the shorts aren't getting their joy right now, or may not ever for some reason. But they, given enough patience, they may well do too. In other words, a number of options remain open. I'll explain where I'm taking you with this. So, Tesla. Elon Musk. You can't talk about Tesla without bringing Elon Musk into it, but let's discuss, let's start with a car company first of all. Initially, we're talking about a motor industry. 80% of battery-driven cars in America are Teslas. In short, Tesla in its domestic market has gone unimpeded. Now the key thing is it's a disruptor, or it's been put forward as a disruptor. Now I need to come in on this because this personally affects me. In fact, if I go back to that map, within a square, completing the triangle of my little old school's rugby fields and Elon Musk's rugby fields is another particular organization called the CSIR, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. This is an interesting little triangle right here. That's Elon, that's me, and this was Dad. Now Dad was an engineer, and actually the interesting thing about Dad in the 70s, during the OPEC crisis, because you can't get away from all aspects of the combustion engine and be talking about Elon Musk and all those aspects. We can't forget that this is a replacement to the combustion engine that is being brought about. Many people think Elon has come up with this. He is the battery guy, you know. He's the innovator. He's the first person to come along with this. I have to say, I'm afraid that's a very big misnomer. That's a very, very big misnomer. In fact, there have been many attempts and many occasions where the combustion engine, the petrol or the accelerant-based combustion engine has been sought to be eliminated, and they were blocked in most instances. And the reason they were blocked usually was the good old USA. So my father went during the 70s, during the great OPEC crisis, and was working with German companies on battery-driven cars at that time. It continued to get crushed. The money wasn't put by the tech, and it was shelved and put back. And wait, sure, battery tech has come a long way. In fact, we can argue that Tesla is in fact the merging of the Apple iPhone type interface, Apple device, and a motor vehicle. In short, all the worst elements about being tracked on your phone and all of that now introduced to your car with a touchscreen interface and running on a big mobile battery. And that is your power source. That is the product, the marriage of these two things. further to that key aspect of the Apple, it's noted that in China, Tesla does a complete disclosure and share of all the data that all Chinese Tesla users generate in terms of their trips, where they're going, etc., etc. Further to which, they definitely track their cars. An internal source for me that I've had discussions with said Audi actually purchased a Tesla, and they had it delivered through an intermediary, so it's not known that Audi was buying the Tesla. And what actually occurred is they then shipped it over to Germany so that they could strip it apart and have a look at all the bits that are in there and understand it. So this is classic competition tracking aspect. The minute the car was turned on and ported inside the Audi HQ in Germany, the car was immediately remotely disabled in America. And the narrative being, oh, this is a US model, it wasn't made to do it. These aspects are utterly controlled in terms of where they are, and they are actually communicating and sending data to the factory, the manufacturers of where these vehicles are. And further, they retain the ability to absolutely turn and lock down the vehicle entirely so that it cannot be used. That's right. In other words, that's an illegal export. You can't do that. You can't do this. The intermediary phoned and said, hey, the car won't start anymore. And they confirmed that they had locked it all, lock, shot, and barrel down. That is the tech that's in your Tesla. That is how they track the vehicle. Plus you have China and their social scores and the fact that it's being directly given to government. You can see why Tesla has been approved. They are advancing, control structures are advancing the greater, more draconian aspects of surveillance and tracking in communist states where the population have been greatly subdued, and Tesla's deeply comfortable with that. Your cool car company that all the Hollywood stars must have. Think about Hollywood's role in making Musk a star, more on that later. And you will now begin to understand how they are making these things cool, yet they are the most draconian. Then go study the Talpiot program out of Israel and how they can take control with laptops of vehicles, and wonder how that turns out in your new tech Tesla. Anyway, we'll be referring back to Apple, and I hope we'll talk more about Apple, because this is going to come back into the discussion. But not only when my father went over to the States, my apologies, to Germany to work on the battery-driven car in the 70s, and then funding kept getting pulled. More recently, around about 90s, I believe it was, if we go over to the release of the Mercedes A-Class. The A-Class is the ironic looking one that's small, has a sort of sloped front like this, and then comes down quite abruptly. That is your A-Class Mercedes. Now, many people don't know this, but as my father told me, and as an engineer, that car was initially meant, it had bad PR, by the way, when it was released, the Mercedes A-Class, because it kept falling over in bends. Why? Because it had this huge sail area side. And one of the reasons you might think, well, why is Mercedes so stupid that they have such a narrow wheelbase and this high sail area side that it keeps toppling over every time you go around the bend, and you go crash, wobble, and off you spin over and it falls over. Well, the key element behind that is that A-Class Mercedes-Benz was designed to be a battery-driven vehicle. In short, that belly pan was meant to be loaded real heavy. Now, had it been the battery vehicle it was intended to be, and it would have been absolutely fine with the narrow wheelbase that it had. There, looking at the back, narrow little wheelbase, high car with high sail areas, low center of gravity with a battery base running through the bottom. However, after doing all the developments, one of the biggest car markets in USA, particularly the state of California, Yep, they said they would not support it. Now, why has this continually happened? Why has America continually been this block to this innovation? And now it's chosen its champion, Tesla, to be the driver of what everyone is being led to believe their new tech, the great innovator. Well, it comes down to the great monopoly in oil that was secured by the Rockefellers with the help of their transport and their refining side that they got into the business, which involved bankers such as the Rothschilds family. And as a result, the petrodollar. The petrodollar has been a very important tool for taxing global citizenry. That's right. When lots of money is released and we have a boom, those that remember 2008 forget that the oil price was actually deep in the hundreds of dollars. That's how they claw back all that additional wealth with the expansion of money, the property prices going up, people buying cars, etc. I call it the Rockefeller tax, and it certainly is. And it's a very, very useful thing. It involved the cooperation of the Saudis, America, and the support for the dollar as the pricing benchmark for all commodities, not just oil, but oil is one of the biggest of the lot. So here we have a special control structure interest in maintaining the existence. Only when they say we're ready to let that go, and they have secured strength and maintained some degree of support either for the currency of the dollar, that it will continue to own its hegemony, or they are preparing for its eventual demise and a woku or a basket in some point in the future. Who knows what their agenda is? I can only speculate. But the key element is America has been the block for battery-driven innovation from the 70s right the way through to the A-class Mercedes-Benz, which is in the 90s, that was meant to have a belly pan with a low C of G, center of gravity. So where does this bring us? So Elon is selected to be the champion, in my opinion, for this company. That means there's darker forces than normal financial mathematics in trading. We're very smart people like Druckenmiller that was short in the Tesla and said, you know, we got that wrong. I don't know if he got it wrong. These guys are real smart. The big pros, the institutional pros that go short equities, do their research. Rarely are they wrong. They can suffer by being early. They can suffer earliness, but rarely are they entirely wrong. Many people, there were people that questioned Enron and that had off balance sheets items. They were smart and they were accurate. Rarely are short sellers entirely wrong. There is something not right about the cash burn that goes on in Tesla. You've got to remember, this company is losing a huge amount of money. And one of the great theories that come up for why Tesla is different is the Amazon narrative. They'll say Tesla is the Amazon of motor vehicle transport, strokes, software as a service in transport, broad company that is the master of everything. Kind of like how I compare more like Enron, when it was initially an oil trader and then was a broadband trader and then was a trader of all commodities and all of this. It was just, wow, we just supply, buy and sell. We're an intermediator of anything. And it was just sprawl and everyone was, wow, what innovators, how awesome. I would put Tesla closer to the Enron category than I would put to the Amazon. The key element about Amazon that is different from Tesla is that Amazon was securing global market share and was killing traditional players. Who is waiting for Tesla in battery-driven cars that you think Tesla has killed and now owns that market in the same way that Amazon owns retail for everything? Remember, Amazon started as books, so everyone goes, yeah, Tesla's doing the same. They'll go into other things. Then Amazon does all things. So many people, I think in the States, 42%, 46%, God knows what the number, but it's a giant number, don't quote me, of retail goes through Amazon now. They bought a huge market. They got everyone into the habit of using it for buy everythings. You buy a car once. You do not keep buying that car regularly. You do not make regular Amazon-based retail purchases. You make a purchase once. That company has one chance to affect you positively. Otherwise, you won't buy that model again. And the competition are coming. Brands like Porsche, Jaguar, the rest of the VW group, the BMW group, who had a shock miss on earnings. I'll come back to that when I talk about global car capacity, which I will come to, Mercedes-Benz, etc. So what you actually have here are the real big names that do tech and execute quite well, are all coming. In other words, Amazon was competing against a bricks and mortar bookshop to start, such as a big chain like Barnes and Nobles and many others, but lots of smaller rats and mice industries. And I will come and I'll talk about the one world order company per industry model that I believe is coming, that is your communism by another name, and often has a champion that is part of the control structure in a corporatocracy type way. But that's a separate discussion. So while I peek down at some of the points that I want to make sure I cover, what else have we got about Tesla? Well, they don't own any of the technology per se. It's a battery, it's a mobile. I left my E out there. Battery on a bigger scale. How did this guy get to burn $1 billion a year? Well, he made some money in PayPal. I think his share all told was just past the 100 million mark, call it 113, 120. Again, figures not close to my hands, not up to date. But this man's shareholders and company are burning $1 billion plus a year, billions in fact. And why is that happening? How can they do it? Well, they've got 80% of the US market, and they've got a bit of cool factor and a cult following for now. Let's bring Apple in. Apple had a cult following once. If you still cult and all things Mac, that's okay. You're kind of now just a brand ambassador. It's lost its cult status for me and is in the process of losing even its brand equity, as all the others have taken and adopted the innovations and gone further. You have Huawei doing 5G already. Not that that's a good thing, but they all have the touchscreen. Nothing new coming out of them, just different sizes, batteries, apps. They're now trying to get into banking and credit cards. I can tell you that the innovation from the most global corporate companies are dead when they all start the financial engineering game and they become banks. Think of GMAC. That was GM's finance company that was lending money on buy-to-lets in the UK. That's a car company that became financially engineered and got more into financial. Yes, tertiary extracting is a nice way to make money, but guess what? When the liquidity is being pushed, it's great. When the liquidity goes out and you have to become a debt collector, how's that Apple brand going to look? Anyway, I don't want to go too far with Apple, but cults wither on the vine. It's very difficult to keep the level of innovation, the level of cool going. They put the procurement guy in charge, excuse me, with Apple, and what's happened? Nothing. It's been cash cow managed. Yes, its share price will still go up. It'll make money for a long time, but the innovation and the coolness, it could be a future IBM, and I consider that a very sick company. Okay, so cash burn, valuation too high for its level of cash burn. It is too highly valued. Who is allowing this company to keep running and burning all of this cash? Well, the cult following that are happy to keep buying shares, for an example, and supporting the share price, but that doesn't translate into capital for them to burn. I like to refer to the fact that many people don't realize that Rockefeller was head of Chase Bank and kept Mr. Trump when he fell foul in his casino and was essentially bankrupt, kept him in business and kept him spending like a billionaire and saw him through the entire property cycle till he went from being deeply underwater and should have been foreclosed upon to suddenly being the comeback kid and a billionaire all over again and free to pursue all his projects and all sundry. But I think from that point he was an owned entity, and next thing you know he got a bit of a cult following, again a cult with his apprentice program, so that he could leverage that into office. Could Elon, I don't know if he still has a South African passport or a US one, because you have to be a citizen to become a president of America, but could Elon be of use to a control structure masters at a later point? The things that make me always go about certain aspects that keep showing up are the following. I don't like the notion of people that are getting involved in space. Space, I'm not quite sure what I think about that, apart from saying if it's going on for real in the correct fashion that we're being led to believe, it's sure as hell bloody expensive. You burn a whole bunch of fuel there. Then there's the green stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like destroying the planet. I like efficiency. I think if you can do something cheaper and better and do less harm, it's totally cool. But without a doubt, there's a control structure narrative around green. So here we have a combination of Elon Musk, space, green, and then transport, public transport, scanning in. He's going to do this. His boredom company is going to do the LA tunnels, and he's going to fix everything. He's a Mr. Fix-It for everything, an idea a gallon. His brain is popping. He's going to do this, fix that. Let's do it. He's chasing so many rabbits, making promises and not meeting them. You speak to the Tesla short community. He makes delivery promises, doesn't meet them. He makes all sorts of statements, product launches. He doesn't even have a product line. He runs out of a product line. He's built a tent in a parking lot to do a product line. Is that still premium product feel? Do you think Porsche will do that with their offering by the time they start hitting? And by the time they land, then the models will come thick and fast. He's in his window of opportunity. Unlike Amazon, which is competing with Joe Blow's books down the road when it first started, and little retailer chains, these guys are real competitors, already global in their own rights, with dealer networks in his hometown. And that's who he has to fight with. So it's a very interesting thing. The other thing is the cult of Hollywood and celebrity that surrounds him. This is someone who's getting cachet. He's been afforded a lot of... People don't know business leaders, the average American, but they all know Elon Musk. He's the Iron Man. You know, he's I can't even remember the character, Tony, whatever his face, of Enterprises, whatever. He's a movie. He's a caricature of a movie. He's meant to be the new Steve Jobs, only there's not the same degree of innovation and legit engineering in my view. He's combining existing technologies. Yes, I think a Tesla would actually be quite fun to drive and own and to play with. You know, the iPad type interface thingy-me-bob and a couple of auto tricks. Fast as all hell, which batteries which give you immediate torque will all be. Trust me, the Porsche version will be super fast. So will many of the others. So it'll look less unique when you compare like for like as opposed to combustion-based engines. What else has he done? He's done really funny things personal behavior-wise. Apart from cueing child rapist into a narrative on Twitter to some guy who was saving kids that were trapped underwater. I don't get at all what that is about. As a CEO of a mega corp, it's a worrying Hollywood type meme for me that I feel very uncomfortable when I see that sort of thing pop up. What else? Government subsidies. Now, government, who owns government? And I can't help but get away from this whole oil industry, oligopolies, dark state and everything. He's getting government subsidies and tax incentives. How and why and for how long? Why? Because it's feel good and it's green, and green is a meme. Well, he went and bought a solar panel company, Solar City, I believe it was the name, for the better part. And on top of it, it has 700 million in debt. So on an already indebted company with a mega cash burn, he's buying other companies that have gone bankrupt with big indebtedness. Then there's the stock manipulation. If I turn around and say, I'm going to buy out my own company, funding secured at $420, that's it, I'm going private, screw this being listed, you guys ask too many questions, it's awkward, and I tweet that out, that's kind of like a PR release. It is information. Guess what? The rest of the people should know all about it, including inside your company, before you say something like that. And if it causes the stock to spike, you're treating the stock as your own little pump and dump ICO token in crypto land. It's not much better. In terms of corporate governance, this guy's behaved like a cowboy. He's behaved like a cowboy and he lacks real corporate CEO seriousness. And everyone says, yes, but that's what makes him so cool. You know, a Teflon factor. So what if you don't deliver on your deadlines? No big issue. Store closes, then you realize you got a lease you can't get out. Do a U-turn, what the hell? it sounds very much like shoot, ready, aim. And this is only, that has a lot of material effect on the running of a company in the long run. It must be a bun fight in there. If you've got a guy making promises and then going back to his team is, how are we going to deliver on this shit I just spoke? And they're all going, well, you kind of spoke really long shit there. I'm not sure we can. So what happens? Promises, impulsiveness, and then there's the embedded confession of bankruptcy jokes. It's kind of like, I'm so cool with this whole idea that we could go bankrupt. I'm ready to joke about it. It's almost as if in a deception game, many times there's this, what I call an embedded confession. So the problem I have with him is the veneer of control structure backing him. And this could be the problem for the shorts. Because in the same way, if you could have shorted Trump's casinos, he actually would have sat the entire recession out, because Mr. David Rockefeller, then chairman of Chase a bank, as it was known back then, kept letting him dig deeper into a bottomless pit overdraft. That's right. When you get to the real dark state money, the guys that actually print up the tokens and the fake money in the computers, they can give people they've chosen as much as they damn well want. They can be wrong far longer than you can be right. When you have that depth of pocket, talking trillionaires, and if they need to be more, they can print them up. They run the game. They literally run the game. And I'm asking the question, is there more behind who stands behind Elon? And will he have a role, maybe in government, maybe in the IMF, maybe as a thought leader, an innovation for a new world order type structure, whether it be political, whether it be quasi-political, who knows? I think he's being groomed for other things. I don't think the name Elon Musk will go and remain solely tied to this Tesla. They're building too much celebrity cachet that the name Elon Musk is almost a bigger brand than Tesla. And SpaceX and these crazy pictures of cars in space that look as fake as all hell. I don't know what to say to you guys. There's an oversupply in cars. Right now in the States, they're doing 72-month deals, 6 years. That's what my father, that same engineer, paid his own house off in on cars. They will do channel stuffing. Wait till all that capacity is turned and a small segment of it is going to batteries. There's over-financing already in cars. There are going to be a glut of second-hand cars in the next downturn. And the Ford and the GMs of this world are going to have to keep manufacturing to keep jobs in going. You're going to have airports full of stock again. And wait till they're making battery cars. They have to. They can't be left behind. Tesla will no longer be the coolest in the same way Nokia was the best phone to have and was no more the coolest. Tesla, in my view, is going the Enron or the Nokia route, to be bought out for pennies in the pound by some like the likes of Microsoft, who are behind the curve and missed the internet in the same way Tesla could go. And that could see an immense loss in its valuation. Particularly if we have a downturn, particularly with the overcapacity in cars. Yes, they combustion engine mostly cars, but as I've already alluded to, the other tech is coming. Let's have a look at the chart. Why not? He said, he cried. Is it technically? Where does it stand? So this is my take on a fundamental opinion. I don't assess that all those that are truly reading the balance sheet, truly correctly predicting the delays and the lack of real prep in delivery, there's somewhat of a mooted appeal. There's huge fans because these people are experiencing a technology for the first time, a bit of auto driving, a bit of park assist and all of these things, and the nice, familiar, as I've already referred, iPhone type interface. Yeah, great. That's all well and good. But I'm also deeply concerned with the notion of some of the other what the other car makers will do to this company. So, okay, historically, nice kind of continuation setup. Let's get a draw over here. Let's do it. I'm going to do this weekly, get a bit more detail. Weekly, close. Let's get a weekly, and let's have a look at the Tesla chart. Well, wrong way. What do you think of Tesla and all its associations and the cachet and the cult of celebrity owner and all of that? That is brand value for a while, but it can bite back hard. When he gets washed out of it and it's now run by ordinary Mr. Grey suit, I don't know if they will get away with things that they've got away with before. Here was a nice continuation structure set up that led to that move. There clearly was a wall of money that came in during that period. That was 13, 14. That then legged it up. This is what I call quite convex type structure until we got there where there was a little bit of a falling wedge and it got another surge there on increasing volume. But the volume actually got to the highest point as it got to the top. So the volume built, then it got higher. Then it went a bit quiet, and then we've had spike highs with generally quite high volume in here. So we have a structure like that and that. Now, I don't know about you, but if we got a sell-off down to here at this key zone, here in and around, and I would usually say key levels of significance are the $200 mark. If we revisited back down there, you would potentially be on for a left shoulder with this being a possible head. Whoops, that's right, head in there. And then you just need your bounce off your $200, $180 level for the next reversal of some scale to come. You've got to ask yourself, what margins are they making on the 3? How's he going to get value out of the battery company that he's bought? At the moment, this certainly seems like a resistance level. In and around the 360, 400 has not been made. He actually stated 420 to be taken out. He would have been attempting to gap pump his stock up here. What other levels are interesting? This over here, the 290, 300 level. Let's redraw. I'm going to take the logarithmic scale out of this, in fact, so that we can just get slightly more obvious round numbers out of it. Let's do that draw again. Where are these key levels? I'm suggesting that between 260 and 280, or maybe the 280 itself, is definitely a key level. You've got to look at the 300. If we get that out the way, it's never traded 400, we said. And it's very volatile up here, in and around the 380 mark. This is very spiky, jerky price action. That means there is a serious degree of uncertainty around the level. The left shoulder zone starts in around the 180 and will take you up to, as I say, I like to see the key levels just run. So I'd say 180, 260, a little bit lower, and then that's also run the 260, and then just the key levels just run 360. So you've got 360, 260, and 180 as key zones. So any form of a minor rally here and then a visit down to these levels, I would be looking for that to be a short, close around the 280, 260 level, sell short for a later break of the neckline. I would allow it first to revisit this. I would allow it to rally, and it would be in a shorter zone at 280, 260 after visiting 200 and just running it. So that would be the trade. Allow it to visit sub 200, short any rallies at the 260, and then where would it go, you ask? What's your target for this trade? Let's clear and talk about it. So I would be a shorter. This is not bullish price structure. Generally, this is not a continuation pattern. It's highly volatile. Let's draw that line for you. How far geometrically would I go? Well, I would take it from the extreme high, but as I've already explained, I would run that to the 260 mark. I wouldn't take it to the absolute low, and I said the neckline would be around here at the 180. I did ask for a dip between 200, but I actually think we can push that a little bit. That would be absolutely huge in geometry, and that would probably take it down to being sub-zero. So that is clearly not going to be a head and shoulder that'll work. Let's try something a little bit less aggressive. If I went to the 200 round number, as I'd suggested, you're still at 320. You're going to drop all the way down to 200. I'm battling with my maths tonight. It's getting late. And if we project that down from 200, from 320, we're going to be at about $80. I'm not quite sure why I'm getting such interesting lines. Why are we doing that? We're getting a target from 390. That's why. Confusing myself. 390 to 200 is 170. So if you go back down from 200 to 170, you're actually potentially looking at a return to the $10 mark, which is going to be a totally different realm if this did turn into a head and shoulder. So excuse me for being a little bit all over the shop there with my maths. So the target could be for the shorts, and that would be getting close to, I would expect you to have a bankruptcy filing at $10 after visiting these kind of heights. So you got close to 390. Let's just write those numbers again because I made such a pig's ear of it. And you would take 180 or 200. I think you almost have to take the 200 because you'll virtually be at zero otherwise. That's also remains the possibility, and down then to the $10 mark if you take the 200 neckline, and to below sub-zero if you take the 180 neckline from there, because then you'd be well over 100 and you'd be at 210 down from there. So that's zero. So if that does turn out to be a head and shoulder, this would be a big sell-off. It's quite assumptive of me, by the way. There is a level and layer here, so I would expect some rally first and then a sell-off down to there. If we get the yield curve is inverted, I'm expecting recession. I think it's going to prove hard. But if this company is supported, as I've suggested in the deep pockets money, because he's now going to be taking the American consumer off the reliance of oil. If he's got Rockefeller dollars, he'll be allowed to trade right through. And his other projects and companies will continue. He'll probably hand this over to someone else to crash land, kind of like Philip Green did with his BHS, British Home Stores. Okay, that's a couple of thoughts and a little bit of a technical take on Tesla. They're much better people fundamentally, which will have all their numbers to the fingertips. But I've sort of let this story go on without paying it too much attention. But it's now become something that they're so divisive. The shorts are becoming really emphatic and irate. Elon Musk chased after a couple of people that were regularly reporting, had a guy doxed and exposed his name and his address, which I think is, if you're comfortable and confident, you're used to trolls. I have trolls as a small guy who just hate everything I do and want to say something crap. Most of the time, I don't even spend any time responding to them. They're just haters and they're out there and they do that. Real companies just win by executing and doing their success. He's chased after guys. He's exposed their names, which is quite daft. He's accused media people that of being under the payroll of the short sellers when they critiqued the fact that the Model 3 didn't have certain brake tests done to it. This is a little too sensitive. This is a little too thin-skinned. Maybe there's real cause for concern. That is the end of this rather long clip on Tesla. I hope you enjoyed it. I think it's either controlled and backed to a degree that the shorts never win, or it could go to zero. And we'll find out in time, in the course of time. But the key with shorting is getting your timing right. And I don't want to play this game because he might be too strong for too long. Okay, bye for now.